All right, hi boys and girls. So Mrs. Krieger is going to take you through right here what you will be working on. You'll see this Google slide shared with you anytime I do a lab or investigation. Okay, so as I show you a lab, whether it's virtually or whether I do it, in person, you will then be asked after observing and taking a look at the investigation, you'll get this Google slide that I'm going to explain the directions to. So please make sure you're paying attention. So slide one, very simple, just your name. And then the next slide, you will ask yourself, what was Mrs. Krieger trying to figure out during the lab? What was the question? Okay, I will always address it during the lab. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm trying to do. And you will type it in the form of a question. So it is pertaining to that very lab that I'll either show you in person or a video. What's the question that I'm trying to figure out during the lab? The next slide, you can either take the hypothesis I come up with during the lab, or you will form your own. So even if you already watched the video, you can ask yourself as you are watching the demonstration or the lab, what was your hypothesis? What did you think was going to happen and why? So I wrote a little note. Remember, it should begin with the word if. If this happens, then this, and because. So remember, it should begin with the word if. It should have the word then in the middle and the word because at the end. So it's a prediction or an explanation of what you think will happen and why. It can be right, it can be wrong. You're just defending your answer. The next slide is I want to make sure you're paying attention during the experiment. What are the important materials? You can just list them right there. And here, each lab will have a different amount. Remember, independent variable is what's the only change or variable in that lab. So if I'm testing what paper towels work best, the independent variable would be the name brand of the paper towels. It should only be one thing I'm changing. And the dependent variable is what you're measuring. Are you measuring the temperature? Are you measuring the amount of water? Are you measuring the egg fitting in the bottle? It's the result, what you're measuring. In observations, as you watch the lab or demonstration done by me, just tell me some things you saw, heard. Now, I know you cannot physically taste or smell if it's a video, but you can do lots of sight and hopefully some sound during the experiment. Or maybe I showed you an observation of a measurement, very detailed. Okay, I just want to make sure you're paying attention closely during the labs or instructions, and you're just going to tell me some general observations. I'm going to ask that you come up with at least two, preferably as a fifth grader. I would hope you have three. So I know that will be a question, at least two observations. And then the conclusion. The conclusion is what happened in the experiment, and then go back. Was your hypothesis correct that you thought would happen, or was it incorrect? So you're telling me what happened in the actual experiment, and you're also telling me, was your hypothesis correct or incorrect based on my lab and demonstration? Overall, after you watch the lab and fill out the Google slide, okay, if you come up with a good question, you got 5 points there. Hypothesis, so we want to see fives for a total of 35 points. And that each slide is filled in and that you answered the questions correctly. So that is how you will be graded on that specific lab and experiment.